after that video, I decided to do my own research. Now, I read a load of articles and watched loads of videos, and they all kept telling me the same thing about China. It's got the world's longest, and the world's biggest, and the world's first. And that's amazing, don't get me wrong, but I'm a simple girl, and these facts and figures and vanity projects don't really interest me that much. What I care about is the way that infrastructure affects the lives of ordinary people. If you want to talk about the effect that infrastructure investment has on the lives of ordinary people, then there's only one logical place to start here in Beijing: underground. Across China, 35 cities have metro systems, with over 200 lines in use and many more being built. And these aren't just being built for show. You just have to pop into any metro at rush hour to realize how much they are actually used. In fact, in Beijing, almost 4 billion passengers use the metro every year. With so many passengers passing through, you'd expect that the stations would be a little bit ropey, but actually they're very big and modern and spacious and very clean as well. You can't say that for every station in the world. In fact, a lot of the time they're quite dark and dingy and a little bit scary. But here, no matter what time I get the metro, I feel really safe. And amazingly, even though Beijing has the busiest and longest metro station in the world, the maximum fare is only 8 yuan. So unlike these massive infrastructure projects, this is one that benefits everybody. Above ground, however, it's a completely different story. The traffic is absolutely mental here in Beijing. And with so many cars and bikes and things on the road, they do get worn out quite quickly. When I'm riding my scooter, although the bike lanes are amazing, there are a lot of potholes, so it does make for quite a bumpy ride. So it's a good job that people are able to ride the subway here, as it has the added benefit of easing congestion and helping the environment. The buses are also electric here, which is a great step in the right direction. Having taken the odd road trip in China from city to city, I've got no complaints. But let's face it, if you're going to travel in China, you really want to be taking the train. Even since I've been here, loads of new high-speed railway lines have popped up. And a whopping 2/3 of the world's high-speed rail is here in China. The high-speed trains are sleek, modern, fast and comfortable, and definitely the most relaxing way to travel around China. But if you've seen my previous train video, then you'll also know that there are sleeper trains here. They're not quite as fast, but they're definitely charming. And if you've got the extra time, then this is a great way to experience the country. You've probably heard me say this before, and I'm sure you'll hear me say this again, but I'm not quite as impressed with the flights here in China. The tickets are actually quite expensive, especially when you compare them to the prices in Europe. It feels like the flights are often delayed and the airports aren't the most organized. But seeing as China is leading the way in train travel, why can't it do the same for the air industry? I'm hoping in the next few years this will really turn around, and infrastructure projects such as the Beijing Daxing Airport will hopefully make this better. I'm aware that being able to travel in the first place makes me incredibly privileged. So let's get back to talking about some ordinary, everyday things. Internet is utilities like electricity and water and so on. But as boring as they might be, what is exciting is just how cheap they are. In fact, I topped up 1,000 yuan back in January, and it's still going strong, even though I share my meter with a neighbor. Ugh, that stinks. Ugh, it smells so bad. Talking about water though, I don't know what is going on with the drains here, but I noticed this in Nanjing and it's even worse here in Beijing. My drains absolutely stink. I heard that this was because the drain pipes don't have a U-bend, but I don't know how true that is. Please tell me if I'm right or wrong, and please tell me I'm not the only one that drains absolutely stink here. Also, if you have any remedies, please let me know. I want to stop the smell. It's really awful. Something I often get asked about by people coming to live in China is, what's the healthcare like? Well, in a nutshell, you get what you pay for. Some hospitals are good and some hospitals are bad. You can get some quite cheap public hospitals and the doctors are perfectly knowledgeable and very friendly, but the facilities aren't necessarily the best. They're quite old, the conditions are a bit cramped, and they're not necessarily the cleanest. But you can also get some amazing international hospitals where the facilities are top notch, but obviously the price reflects this. So I've had quite a lot of experience with hospitals recently because back in September I had quite a bad accident where I tore my ACL and all my meniscus, and I had to have surgery here. I decided not to go back to the UK and rather to stay in China and get the surgery done here for lots of different reasons. Obviously I was quite nervous as this is actually the first time I've ever had surgery, and I'm having it in a completely different country where I don't really speak the language, so it was quite scary for me. But luckily, the hospital that I went to the international side, and the room was amazing that I was in. The facilities were really great, and it made me feel a lot more at ease. So obviously, I went to the international side, which made it more expensive. Luckily, I have health insurance, which my company provides. So if you are coming to work in China, then make sure you get a contract which provides free healthcare, because otherwise it could end up costing you an absolute fortune. I can't stress this enough. If you're ever traveling or ever going to a new country, get health insurance because you just never know what's going to happen. Another thing to consider if you're moving to China is housing. Now, generally, the cost of living is a lot lower here compared to Western countries, but depending on what city you're moving to, housing can be really pricey. Here in Beijing and in Shanghai, then apartments are pretty expensive, even compared to housing back in the UK. As China becomes more and more developed, people are moving from the rural areas to the big urban centers. A lot of my colleagues are from all over China, but not many of them are actually from Beijing. As the population swells in size, some of these cities can't physically get any bigger, which has led to the construction of brand new cities. I visited Shenzhen a while back, and I was blown away by just how modern, developed, and new it was. And that's because it is new. It's got a population of just over 10 million, but in the 1970s, it wasn't even a city. It was a collection of small fishing villages and towns with a population of 30,000, and now it's been developed into the city that you see today. When I lived in Nanjing, I lived in the suburbs. I only lived there for a year, but I saw all these buildings getting built around me. Apartment blocks, malls, bars, restaurants, and it was just crazy how fast they were getting built. When I lived in the UK, I lived in the same city for 5 years. Whenever I went home to visit my parents, I would take the same main road back home. And every time I went home, there was always roadworks on it. 5 years I lived in that city. But as quickly as things get built here, they also get changed. So don't get too attached to that restaurant or shop that you love, because a month later, it might be something completely different. There's been times where I've gone to my favorite noodle restaurant only to find out that it's gone forever. I've never been to a country where things have changed so fast. Obviously, we've covered a lot of ground here, and if you've stuck around to this point, then you are a true fan. And if you're a true fan, then you'll know what I'm obsessed with here in China is parks and green spaces. Now, a lot of these new buildings that are being built are obviously high-rise buildings, which means that people don't really have gardens. But because they're saving space on the ground, they always make sure that there's green spaces in the compounds for everybody to enjoy. So you'll find old ladies dancing, kids playing, and old men just chilling in these beautiful green areas. I love traditional Chinese parks, but even in cities like Shenzhen, which is a new city, the city planners make sure that there's loads of green spaces for people to enjoy.